Good morning, church family. Today we are in Genesis chapter 6 for our daily devotional time together. And since chapter 3, we've seen sin increase in the world kind of like a spreading wildfire, unfortunately. And as humans multiplied, so did sin. And we see the sons of God and the daughters of man coming together early in this chapter for something very sinful themselves. The identities of these two groups are uncertain, but some suggest the sons of God refer to fallen angels, some tyrannical kings, or ungodly descendants of Cain. At any rate, we see that there's sexual immorality happening to a large degree with these groups, and it's a very sad thing. So much so that God says He is limiting the days of men to 120 years. Now, this could mean that humans generally won't live past 120 years, or that the flood would occur 120 years from that point in time. Then we read about the Nephilim mentioned in verse 4. And now these are mysterious but mighty men or warriors who possibly contributed to the violence and the corruption of the time. So the point, these are some mysterious people groups, but the point is that the evil was so rampant it came to a point where God was grieved that He had made man, and He saw the wickedness of man was great, and every intention of the thoughts of His heart were on evil continually, and that's a very sad thing as well. In order to continue His good work, He decided in His wisdom that He would blot them out along with all the animals. Incredible. Sin had caused a sort of reversal now of creation. In the beginning, God saw that everything He had made was good, but we, as humans, we allow things that are not good to corrupt us, and sin increased. In verse 8, it says this incredible phrase, "But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord." In the midst of the corruption, violence, sin, and judgment, God would use one man to save mankind and preserve mankind. Now, does that sound familiar? We read that Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. He walked with God. Man, should that be said about us? We know that God instructed Noah to build an ark that would have been 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Wow. Let me show you this. This is a small wooden model of the ark that they built in Kentucky at the Ark Encounter. And this is just a little small token from that trip that I got at that ark. And they used the exact specifications to build that one. And it is massive. It is something to behold. What a giant job Noah had ahead of him. God told him to build the ark and also to bring on board with him his wife, his sons, and his sons' wives, so that they could be preserved along with, as you know, 2 of each animal, male and female, again, to preserve life. He also instructed them to bring the food they would need for nourishment during that time. And I think verse 22 shows another angle on Noah's character. We already read that he found favor in the eyes of God, and that he was a righteous man and a blameless man, and he was a man who walked with God. And so after receiving all these instructions in this massive project, we see later in verse 22, Noah did these things. He did this. He did all that God commanded him. Wow. In the midst of corruption and violence and evil, there was one who found favor with God. It was God's man who walked with Him and feared Him. He did all that was asked of him because he walked with God. He loved Him. Will you and I be men and women of God that are righteous in the midst of corruption and in the midst of evil? Will we still walk with Him? Will we find favor in God's eyes in the midst of chaos around us? Will we walk with God so that when He asks anything of us, no matter how big or small, we will obey Him? Just like God used Noah and the ark to save humanity, so too did Jesus come, that all who run into Him, trusting in Him, will also be saved. What a great picture of salvation this is. I hope that you are running to Jesus today for shelter, for refuge, for strength, and for salvation with all that's going on in our world. So I pray that has encouraged you this morning. Let's rest in that, meditate on that, and dwell in that truth today. We'll see you next time.